All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the New York Giants in tonight's video. Folks, this is a 6-11 team. They missed the playoffs last year. A lot of people say they're one of the worst rosters in the National Football League, but it does feel a little bit different for me. We're going to talk about the overall outlook of the New York Giants a little bit later on in this video, but they're in joint practices right now with the Detroit Lions, and they ran these last season. And I just made a Lions video talking about this because I think the Lions and Giants are in completely different stratospheres, right? The Lions just won 12 football games. They just won the NFC North for the first time, in franchise history. From the standpoint of like the Detroit Lions, I'm not looking for like injuries, but from the standpoint of the New York Giants, what I want them to do is hold their ground, fight back, and show their worth and show, look, you know what? We're being overlooked. Maybe we're a little bit undermatched, but we're still going to try our asses off to take you down, even if it's just freaking practice. And so I saw this tweet here from Dan Dugan, and I think just when I saw this from a Giants perspective, it just kind of lit me up in a good way. Calm Daboll has been replaced by Game Day Daboll today. He has been fired up. He got pissed off at a Lions defensive lineman for tipping a Daniel Jones pass from his hands. QBs are off limits in practice, and Daboll didn't appreciate how close the guy was to Daniel Jones. He also very adamantly encouraged the offense to continue throwing deep after the Lions celebrated a few deep incompletions. And it's just like, this stuff fires me up. We also heard that this was the most intense from that Dan Dugan, the reporter, the beat writer with The Athletic for the New York Giants. He said this was the most intense practice he's seen in 9 seasons of doing this. So welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the New York Giants in tonight's video, but before we do, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. We try and post as many Giants videos as humanly possible on this channel, so if we try and get it to 100 likes, I'll greatly appreciate it. I was just reading like this kind of, and we talked about the Giants a couple of weeks ago. It's going to come down to Daniel Jones, but at a more deeper level, it's going to come down to the offensive line health. I think Darren Waller just said this a couple of days ago. Former NFL football players or coaches, a lot of people are saying the same thing. Look, man, last year specifically, Daniel Jones, even if he didn't tear his ACL, even if he didn't get injured, the Giants weren't going to do anything because of how bad the offensive line was. We know you need to win in the trenches. But real quick, before I get more off topic here, in our last Giants video, I talked about if there's going to be somebody who can get Daniel Jones back on track, there's somebody who can get this Giants team back on track. And folks, I'm not even talking about long-term. Daniel Jones, $41 million a year, soon to be a $58 million cap hit. It's not looking good. He's got career averages or a career record of 22, 36, and 1. He has a career average of only 6.6 yards per attempt. That's 39th in the NFL over the last 5 years. So the stats are not, the analytical deep statistics are not in Daniel Jones' favor, but just the pure vibe off Brian Daboll calling plays, Brian Daboll just being in charge of the offense, to me, it changes everything. Brian Daboll kind of appeared on Hard Knocks that, a lot of these guys, Brian Daboll specifically wanted a new quarterback at this year's draft. I think I just saw that Hard Knocks clip where the GM was talking about, I think it was to New England with a 3rd pick. Like, if you're going to trade that, call us because we'll take that. So I do think Daniel Jones' future in New York is not looking bright, but I still think this is a competitive team. It's crazy to me because Daniel Jones was like 1-6 starting last season, 1-5, something crazy like that. And you ripped, DeVito, you ripped Tyrod Taylor. And this is a team that still actually won 6 football games. So I think this defense is a lot better than people give them credit for. And just the fact that they all had each other's backs today in a joint practice against the Detroit Lions, a more proven team, a team that was like a quarter away from making the Super Bowl. I think it just told us a lot about, the grit, the intensity, and the chip on the shoulder that this New York Giants team has. I view the Giants defense as above average, but once again, it's going to come down to the offense. So when I saw that the Giants did not get bullied, they didn't get outclassed in today's practice, apparently they held their own in the trenches. The defensive line had a lot of positive moments in the run game. Apparently the Giants were able to run the ball at a solid rate. The offensive line today was Andrew Thomas, John Runyon Jr., Van Van Roten, Aaron Stinney, and Jermaine Illuminor. Now I'll go out right here on a limb and say, you know, I assume when John Michael Schmitz is back healthy and he's the starting center, I don't feel good about Stinney at right guard. I do think long term it'll be Van Roten at some point. I don't know if it'll be week one, but just get that out of the way. That was the offensive line today. You know, like we said at the beginning of this video, today's headliner from practice was the fight. And so apparently, you know, one big scruffle was from the Giants offense. It was that we alluded to in the beginning of this video when Daniel Jones' arm was hit by a Lions defensive player. So after practice, Jones stated that deliberate contact to the quarterback typically doesn't happen. And then Brian Dable, during it, he said, "Stay the F off of our quarterback," to the Detroit Lions defense. Then one play later, Van Roten was on the ground and Daniel Jones was in a scrum. So fights broke out so much in today's practice that reporters couldn't even keep track of how many there were. But apparently 3 stood out from the rest of them. And your GM even got in the mix of it to separate the fight at some point. This is all expected. Teams get together for joint practices. Interesting to note, saw this on The Athletic, that there were no fights on the first day of practice last year. But, you know, fights are just going to happen. We heard from all the quarterbacks. I think Daniel Jones said this quote, "Situation happens, got to stand up for your guys. You know, that's part of football." Bobby Okereke said, "You can't tell us to go out there and compete and grind and not expect for something like that to happen. It's a part of the game." And then just real quick, a couple of notes that I saw from Giants practice today. Daniel Jones, what is this? Day 11 of 18, 11 on 11. Wait, sorry, that didn't make any sense. Let's get the stats out of the way. I have Jones finishing the day 11 of 18 during 11 on 11s. There we go. He was 4-4 in 7 on 7, and he generally had time to throw. He had to move in the pocket a few times, but no plays were blown dead as sacks, and he never had to scramble. And then Malik Nabers, I guess, also was dominant today. So, you know, when we look at the Giants offense, everyone's freaking out about their wide receiver room. You know, I still think dudes like Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt coming off an intriguing rookie season. You still have Slayton, you got Hodgins, you got McKenzie back there. I think Malik Nabers is going to be, you know, by far over 1,000-yard receiver this upcoming season, even if Danny Dimes is only throwing for 220 a night. My only thing is, and I get it, losing to Saquon, especially to Philadelphia, certainly doesn't help. I'm excited about Eric Gray. I also think Devin Singletary in general across the NFL is extremely underrated. It literally, to me, just comes down to the offensive line. Can they get the job done? Can they stay healthy? Because, folks, if the Giants' offensive line can do their job at a much different rate than they did last season, and Daniel Jones plays and is healthy for all 17 games, I'm not saying the Giants are going to be this, you know, 11-6 team, this 12-5 team, but it's going to be better than a lot of people think. They're not going to be this 4-13 squad. They're not going to be a 3-win team. They're going to be somewhat competitive because they have an underrated defense. And Daniel Jones, you know, 2 years ago, 15-5, you know, they won the freaking playoff game. You guys dominated Minnesota in the playoffs. So I don't think it's as dire as people think. I do think it's going to be Daniel Jones last season as the Giants, but give me a loose win prediction for the Giants this upcoming season down below. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button. We'll see you soon.